I call this slide How to Save Millions in Minutes. And these are the 5 key things you can do in a very short amount of time to significantly improve meeting effectiveness and save lots of money. And I am serious here, and I'm not selling anything here other than the workbook, and you don't even need that if you've got this video, but please do these 5 things. First of all, define your meeting mission, your process, and your ground rules. So why do we meet? How do we meet? And what are our goals? What are we going to produce each meeting to show we did our job? Number 2, develop group dynamics and facilitation skills. It's fun, actually. You learn about yourself, you learn about each other, you develop stronger relationships. All team leaders should know group facilitation skills, and that includes all backup team leaders. All team members, everyone in the facility should know group dynamic skills because they help you build better relationships. Number 3, capture key counts and defects for each meeting. And it's only 4 or 5 numbers. And I give you a cost and counts tracker and error tracker database example here in just a couple of visuals. Number 4, review vital sign trends at the start of each meeting. Takes about 2 minutes. Meeting effectiveness vital signs include value, cost, satisfaction, and defect ratios, and they're not complicated. And then finally, change the meeting process to improve your results. If you need to, take your meeting defects, group them together, use defect Pareto charts to help identify target areas, but it's going to pop you right in the face as soon as you start tracking meeting defects. The meeting agenda is the process map for any organization. Any meeting you hold in an organization. When we add time elements to each agenda item, it helps keep the team on track. It provides a mechanism to measure meeting effectiveness. When we define expected time frames for each item, it also encourages people to manage the group process in a manner that stays within the time allotted and gives the team a means for gauging team effectiveness. And when I say this, when everyone can see the time frames, they will help manage their behavior to stay within the time frames. When we fail to identify time investments, we create the potential for a lot of wasted time in meetings. Plus, we should issue the agendas ahead of the meeting. And so we've got an example of a high-performance agenda here, and you can see it's just very basic. It's not hard to measure if we're staying on track or not. Now, right after that visual, you'll find in the workbook, we have a meeting effectiveness survey, and that will help us measure meeting effectiveness to a more effective degree. Measuring meeting effectiveness. Now, there's 5 possible ways to measure, and I don't like to go over the top here, but hey, they're there if you want to do it, and it will change the behaviors if you do it, but typically you don't have to go this far. But if you're wasting lots of money, you might want to head that way. So let's take a look. First of all, post-event surveys, just little 4 or 5 question surveys. How many people come back? Let's track our percent return attendees if the meeting's optional. Videotape review. Videotape your meetings and review the performance. That'll change the behaviors quickly. What percent of agenda items do we complete to every team member satisfaction? If we have 10 agenda items, have each team member tell you what percent of those agenda items did we complete to satisfaction and average the scores. If you want to use the common best practice, agree, strongly agree, sometimes agree, disagree scale, I've given you 6 questions there that you can rate. Was the meeting well planned? Did it start and end on time? Did the team avoid going off on tangents? Were the required key decisions made? Did we manage group dynamics well? Did all team members participate equally? And the goal here is to be agree or strongly agree. Inconsistency, which is reflected by agree or disagree, the AD in the middle, that is seen as a negative response. It's the best negative response, but it's still on the negative side. If we want to improve meeting effectiveness and reduce meeting waste, some form of measurement has to occur. Again, what gets measured gets done. Without measurement, people underestimate the magnitude of the problem. You see it with personal budgets. You see it with departmental budgets. You see it with mileage on your car. You see it with how fast your kids grow up. You see it with how fast your pets go from small to large. When we don't measure, we underestimate the magnitude of the problem. We also tend to lack the evidence and emphasis necessary to help force behavior and process change. So at a minimum, track meeting defects at every meeting. If you've gone to Toastmasters, Toastmasters uses a stoplight and they have people count things. And then they share the results. And it's that simple. And yet that simple model changes behavior. When you know that people are counting your non-words, your uhs, your ums, it helps you get rid of your non-words when they're going to report back how many you had in the 5-minute talk you just gave. So define ground rules and then track how often we violate the ground rules at each meeting. Simple check sheet. Some practices will change if people simply know that meeting defects such as ground rule violations are being tracked. They will change their behavior. If you trend your defect types and rates over time, if you post them, make them visible, and review those trends at the start of each meeting, now we're starting to hold each other accountable in group. Additional improvements in behaviors and meeting management practices will quickly be realized, and this is usually, again, in less than 5 or 6 meeting cycles if you do this diligently. Since meetings are a process that involves significant dollars being spent, just a single 1 hour, 10-person meeting can cost $350. There's benefits to tracking more than just meeting defects. Consider using a short survey such as the one shown in this video at the end of each meeting to also measure meeting satisfaction from each team member's perspective. Now I've got 2 metrics: defect rate per meeting, team member satisfaction rate per meeting. We can get team meeting costs very easily. It's just the product of meeting length times the cost of the people hours in the meeting. You don't have to have the exact number on the people hours. Wage privacy did need to be maintained to a higher degree than it is now. I know in my world, we actually have wage transparency laws going into effect, but you can get held up waiting on the numbers. Use estimates to generate this important rate. It gives you a key indicator of meeting value and waste. And then there's a meeting effectiveness score that you can use along with the meeting total cost measure to calculate meeting waste in dollars. And that meeting effectiveness score is simply how we fall in terms of strongly agree and agree responses. Costing meeting effectiveness. Here we've got a little chart and just a very quick little trend line. I think a graph would do a better job, but you can see in this example, we've got 5 different meeting dates. You can see where someone tracked the meeting defects and they trended those. And as you can see, this group got better. They also used the little meeting survey that I showed just previously to get them a percentage score. And then they always had the same number of people in the meeting and they met for the same amount of time. So the meeting cost was $500 per meeting. When you multiply that meeting cost times the percentage of people that did not have a positive response, you get the ineffectiveness cost or the waste cost. And that's what's shown there by the formula. Below this slide is a favorite tool of mine. This is the cost and counts spreadsheet. If you use low or no code apps, you can actually capture this information on your phone, on your smartphone, and have it just go right into the Excel spreadsheet. But each row in this table is a meeting. And you'll notice we're looking at tracking the number of people in the meeting, the planned length of the meeting, the actual length of the meeting. And then we've got a calculation for extra meeting minutes. And then we have a cost that is driven by the number of people times the time times the average labor cost per hour shown above in the upper left part of the chart. Our effectiveness score comes from our survey. Our defects are tracked by someone in the meeting. You can see in this example, there are three main defects that gave them challenges were late arrivals, going off on tangents, and discounting each other with behavior. But you can also see those got better just during the 20 or so rows that are shown in this example chart. Now, if you'd like, you can go even further and use a database or a data set to capture your meeting defects. And that's what we've done in this example. And I use this type of data set to capture errors and defects for any type of work process, really any type of process. If you want to reduce meeting waste, you've got to trend performance over time. The performance summary spreadsheet we just looked at can be used for this purpose. The key is to capture and use key data from each meeting, and not a lot of it, just 4 or 5 pieces of information, to generate trend lines and analyze performance patterns. In the tracking meeting performance example, one row of the spreadsheet's used to capture the details for a given meeting. And then we went through the other types of things you can capture. I strongly encourage you to look at the low and no code apps, because if your meetings do truly cost $500 per meeting and you can save half that time, you can justify the app cost very quickly. And it feeds right into the spreadsheet, and then you don't have to pass paper around or send text around or links to surveys around or any of that stuff. It's been my experience that by simply tracking this information and reviewing the trends at the start of each successive meeting, most people change their in-meeting behavior enough to significantly affect the results. Providing the team with feedback relative to defect frequency, meeting cost, and meeting score is usually enough to motivate people to make changes on their own. Hold themselves accountable, which is what leaders should do. You can get even better results if you work as a group in an open dialogue manner to talk about why are we having these results? Why do we keep going off on tangents? Why can't we stop with the discounting? Why can't we all get here on time? But do it in an open dialogue manner, not in an opinion bashing discussion manner. Eventually, your team might even develop the ability to address meeting defects as they happen. And that's what you want to be able to do. It's like, whoa, time out, folks. We're about to go off on a tangent here. Throw the meeting penalty flag. Put up the meeting red card. Let people know that something just happened that we need to talk about and try to minimize in the future. How to improve meeting effectiveness. Listed in this part of the video are 8 key strategies that you can use to reduce meeting waste and reclaim valuable time for other improvement-focused work. In recognition of the fact that you can't change everything all at once, here is a logical implementation sequence. First of all, begin by defining your meeting ground rules and the purpose of the regular meeting. So for every regular meeting, why do we meet? What are the ground rules? Defining ground rules helps set the stage for tracking meeting defects. Defining meeting purpose helps identify areas where redundant and non-value added teams exist. And you use that meeting purpose work along with the team infrastructure blueprint to fine-tune your team designs. One key ground rule you should always have is require the use of time-based agendas at all meetings. Should be simple for a leader that makes 6 figures to make sure they always have a time-based agenda at all meetings. Requiring and enforcing this rule by itself will stop a high percentage of time waste because once again, it's in your face. Agendas are the process map for meetings. Without process maps, you get more variation, you get more errors, you get more defects, you get more dissatisfied customers. Adding an amount of time dimension to each step on the agenda defines a performance expectation dimension. And you can get better at your estimation over time, but don't let the fact that, well, I don't really know how long it's going to take. Don't let that be your reason for not putting something down. Capture a few key pieces of data whenever a meeting is held. Trend the data over time. Review these trends at the start of each meeting. It's literally as simple as the cost and count spreadsheet I showed you earlier. Feedback strongly affects human behavior. For starters, just track total meeting time and cost. Track meeting defects. Ideally, meeting effectiveness should also be captured and trended, but you don't have to mess with the survey right now. Just how long did we meet? How many people were there? What's the math on the cost? And did we have meeting defects or not? The meeting effectiveness metric is an outcome metric. It tends to improve on its own if you address the defect and error metrics. So if you address meeting time, cost, and defects every meeting, you trend them over time and review them, meeting effectiveness takes care of itself. Provide 3 to 4 hours of training on general group dynamics to all team members, but more importantly, expect those skills to be practiced in the meetings. And hold team leaders accountable for tracking defects and promoting the effective use of group dynamics in the meetings. Learn on the spot when the defect occurs. Such training helps make everyone more aware of how their behavior affects team effectiveness, and it begins to help them how to better self-manage such behaviors. It teaches emotional intelligence. It teaches metacognition. There are many other improvement strategies to employ in this training, but simply starting with the 4 areas presented here will provide significant gains in time and money savings. And I am not pulling your leg. I am serious here. Meetings cost a lot, and the tools for reducing meeting waste are simple. The subsequent gains in team performance may be less noticeable, but they will become more significant as the meeting effectiveness scores consistently rise. I've seen this happen. I've seen cases where people want to go to meetings because meetings are value added and they're the place to be. They're the place where you get heard. They're the place where you get validated. But that's not the case in so many organizations. Meeting effectiveness building codes. To wrap things up, here are 5 key building codes for effective meetings. First of all, define meeting mission, the process for executing our meetings, and our ground rules. What's our compelling why for meeting? Why do we have to meet face-to-face? When can we meet virtually? When can we meet in between the meeting and just post the information for individual review and comment? Develop group dynamic skills and facilitation skills. Capture key counts and defects for each meeting. Review vital sign trends at the start of each meeting and change the meeting process to improve results. Let different people lead the agenda. Mix up the agenda items. Try to have different types of topics. Try to use visual aids more. Try to bring examples into the meeting more. Try to do things virtually instead of face-to-face. Try to do things face-to-face instead of virtually. But try to get something different to change the results. And to practice your team facilitation skills, here at the end of Lesson 8, we've got team exercise number 7. List 3 meetings you attend regularly, estimate how much time per month you spend in those meetings, and then evaluate the effectiveness of each of the meetings. More importantly, identify 3 ways to reduce non-value added meeting time and calculate both the total meeting cost and the waste dollars. And use a matrix to summarize your work. It's a great team exercise. If you're going to lead the exercise, you may want to work out an example ahead of time that you can share with the group if they get stuck. It's been a pleasure talking with you about meeting effectiveness. It is a passion of mine to see this improve because I'm so convinced in the value of teams, but only when meetings work. So keep practicing your group dynamic skills. Try some of these other techniques I shared with you here in Lesson 8, and I'll see you down the road with Lesson 9. Keep improving.